Today we are doing a comparison between the Devialet Phantom Reactor 600 and the Sonos 5. I love doing comparison videos. It tells me things through data rather than just depending on my gut feel. Now, I keep wondering, why are people always comparing the Devialet versus the Sonos? I mean, these are vastly different speakers. For one thing, this guy is half the price of the Devialet. And not to mention that the Phantom Reactors are half the size of the Sonos 5. And then I realized that this is the most expensive single music capable speaker from Sonos, and this is the cheapest entry point of the Devialet range of speakers. And so maybe you just want to find out how the best from Sonos stacks up against the least from Devialet. Whatever the reason is, let's find out today in more detail. As usual, I would like to give you my short summary up front, so you don't have to stay throughout the whole video if you don't have the time to do it. Now, between these two speakers, and I'm just going to be comparing one of this to one of this. The bass from the Phantom Reactor 600 is mind-blowing. If you are a bass junkie, go for this guy. Not that you'll be disappointed with the Sonos 5's bass, but it doesn't go as low as the Reactor 600. If you like to play songs at low to moderate volumes, then I'll recommend that you get the Sonos 5s. Otherwise, if you like to blast your music out loud because the Phantom Reactor wants to be punished before it performs at its best, get the Phantom Reactor 600. So that's the summary I have for you up front. Stay around and we can go through more details for these two speakers. So first thing first, I've already told you that this Sonos 5 costs $500 and the Phantom Reactor 600 costs $1,000. I'm talking about one speaker. So the pair that you have here, this would have cost you $1,000, which is actually the same price as the Phantom Reactor 600, a single piece. So when it comes to the physical appearance, both are available in black and white as well. The Phantom Reactor is available in a matte black, which is similar to this, but the Sonos 5, which is available in white, is not the same glossy white as the Reactor 600 that we have here. So size-wise, from the front, you can see that this is probably about 1/2 the size. If I take my whole palm, I can cover the whole reactor, and this will probably take 2 palms. The depth is slightly longer and slightly deeper in at about 8 inches, and as compared to the 6 inches for the Sonos 5, but otherwise, I would say that volume-wise, this is probably about half that of the Sonos 5. In terms of weight, this comes in at 6.3 kg, and this comes in at 4.3 kg. So overall, the Sonos 5s are going to be a bigger and a heavier speaker than the Phantom Reactor 600. And before we go down to compare and talk about each individual speaker, I'm going to tell you that both of these are capable of being paired in a stereo pair. So you can have two Reactor 600, you put them and pair them side by side, you become a stereo pair, and same goes for the Sonos 5s. Now, if you are not budgeting or if you're not prepared to buy a pair of these, meaning to say 2 of each, then my suggestion is don't. I have not come across a good wireless setup that will sound half as good as one that is paired up in stereo. So my suggestion is don't trick yourself, don't lie to yourself that you can do with one. You can't, you need a pair. I mean, I have another one of these in the stereo pair. I'm just not bringing it out because I'm kind of like running out of space here. But I do have a pair of each, and I enjoyed them both in stereo format. So let's take a look at individual speakers in them. So first we'll touch about everything about the speaker except for the sound. So we are leaving the sound to the back where we'll talk about the frequency response. Now when you buy into the Sonos ecosystem, you are actually not just buying one speaker, you're buying into the whole ecosystem. So they make speakers for home theater, they make speakers for music, they even have sub and amplifiers as well as the port, which will allow you to port music in or out of the Sonos system. So effectively, you're buying into the whole ecosystem of products that will cater to both the music as well as the AV enthusiasts. So there's quite a lot of fun that you can have with the Sonos ecosystem. Now the Sonos also comes with a great piece of software. The S2 controller app is an evolved piece of software. It has come through many iterations. It's currently at version 12.1. So if you think about what it does, it means that it is a very polished piece of software. It does its job very, very well, easy to navigate. It might be overwhelming if you are new to the ecosystem, but You will pick it up pretty quickly, and very soon you'll find out that this piece of software from Sonos probably beats almost every other company's software for multi-room systems out there. And not to mention that the streaming services that it supports. Now, the streaming services that it supports, I probably don't want to list them now because there is anything that you can think of, it probably is supported by the Sonos ecosystem. On top of that, you can EQ these guys. So the bass and the treble settings are actually configurable and adjustable via the S2 software platform. So not only that, it has a function known as TruePlay. So TruePlay is a form of room correction software. It basically takes the sound that is bouncing around your room, it measures it using your phone's microphone, your iOS phone device, and it will compare it with a set of predetermined profiles, and it will try to map the sound back to force fit the sound waves into something which the Sonos sound engineer thinks that is the correct profile for the sound for these speakers when they are in your particular room. So TruePlay works differently and to different extent depending on the room that you are in. So the last point I want to mention about the Sonos 5 is that there are 6 drivers in this speaker alone. There are 3 bass drivers and 3 tweeters. The tweeters at the side are angled out quite aggressively, which also means that in one speaker, in one enclosure on its own, it is actually capable of throwing out a stereo image. So even if you buy one Sonos 5, the good thing is that you actually can get true stereo, except that it is probably not as wide as having 2 Sonos 5s. So let's get to the Devialet Phantom Reactor 600. There are 2 versions, one is the 600 and one is the 900, and the naming means the power of the Phantom reactors. I don't think they draw 600 watts and I don't think they are drawing 900 watts either. It is the sound power that is putting out. So at 600 watts, it is pretty damn powerful. And how the drivers at the side, these are bass drivers, they are configured in a push-pull configuration. So when this driver goes in, this goes out, and when this goes in, the other side comes out. So what this results in is a slightly out of phase bass, which means that your whole room will be filled with bass pretty evenly, and it creates a 0 vibration cabinet. So when the forces are acting opposite to one another, the net vibration on the speaker in itself is actually 0. So when it's playing out loud and going crazy and you see those cones jumping, you touch the speaker cabinet, there's no vibration at all. Now there are a couple of things that I don't like about this. The software, Devialet software sucks. There's no EQ on this, there's no equalization, there's no form of setting or any sort of sound profiling at all. And the software hangs, sometimes it cannot find the speakers, which leads me to the other point that, well, this guy connects via PLC, power line communication, which means to say it can find each other, the left and the right speakers, through the power line, which is pretty nifty, but it is not reliable at all. It can also go through Ethernet or it can go through Wi-Fi, but I tried all 3 connection methods and none of them work reliably all the time, none. And while it has AirPlay, it does not have AirPlay 2. So if you are using iOS device or Mac devices and you're trying to AirPlay to a group, you can actually AirPlay to this, but it will not be able to AirPlay to another device. AirPlay 2 enables multi-room, and this is not supported yet. Devialet has been saying that they will release AirPlay 2 on these guys for a very, very long time, but until today, right now, in October of 2020, it's still not happening. I think I must have heard them talk about this for more than a year already. But the lack of AirPlay 2, they compensate by including Bluetooth. So this is a Bluetooth speaker, and this is opposed to the Sonos 5. Sonos 5 relies purely on Wi-Fi, whereas this Phantom Reactor actually does accept Bluetooth as a form of input. There's also a combination jack behind this, which will take a 3.5mm analog input or an optical input, which means that it actually opens up this speaker to connect to your TV. So you can output via your headphone or the line out or the optical digital output from the TV into this speaker. And you cannot do the same for the Sonos 5s. The moment you buy the Sonos 5s, you're more or less almost locked to only music. There's no proper way of input unless you use the analog line in at the back of the Sonos 5. which in a pinch works, but there is some degree of processing involved, and the sound delay will cause a lip sync issue between your video and the audio that's coming out from the Sonos 5 when used in a TV setup. Now the biggest selling point about the Phantom Reactor 600 is the fact that it goes down to 18 Hz. 18 Hz from this is subwoofer territory. From a speaker that I can almost cover with my whole palm, this puts out 18 Hz, and I've measured it, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, so we have cleared the speakers, the features, and what is lacking. Now, I have not touched on the sound. Let's talk about the sound. First and foremost, I actually enjoy these speakers very much. Either the Reactor 600 or the Sonos 5, I like them. But today, I'm going to measure it, and then we can have a better idea of how it actually sounds from the way it looks on the frequency response chart. So the first frequency response chart that I'm going to show you here, you will see 3 curves there. I'll explain each of these curves. I recorded these frequency response sweeps all at 50% volume because frequency response changes with volume. I'll explain that in a while, but 50% recording, the red curve you will see up there, that is the Phantom Reactor, one single speaker on its own. Now, if you compare the bass extension, that is crazy, right? You see how much higher output there is below 20 Hz. Now, then you move on from 20 Hz to about 150 Hz. You see that, well, it's similar to the green curve. Now, the green curve is that of a pair of Sonos 5 grouped together in stereo pair. That's a pair of these, which is almost 4 times bigger than a Phantom Reactor 600. Comparable output. And below 20 Hz, this guy is actually putting out more bass than the pair of Sonos 5s. The blue curve is actually only one Sonos 5 output. So the output from one Sonos 5, you will see that throughout the whole band, it will be slightly lower than a pair of the Sonos 5s. But the Sonos 5s is still not catching up with the Phantom Reactor, even in a pair. Below 20 Hz, as well as somewhere above 150 Hz. So if you look at 150 Hz onwards, it is almost a home run all the way for the Phantom Reactor. There's just so much more output from one single speaker here, which is a quarter the size of a pair of the Sonos 5s. I know I'm repeating it, but it is pretty amazing the kind of output that you're getting from one small speaker here. So I'm going to pull up another chart here. Now, this other chart that you are looking at, I actually measured the same thing, okay, so the same 3 charts, that's the same 3 speakers at 25% volume. Now, you will then see, and this is hardly surprising, but this Phantom Reactor relies a lot on its power to produce the output. So at 25% volume setting, you see that almost throughout the whole range, it is not able to put up even as much output as a single Sonos 5. Well, except for the range below 20 Hz, which it still demonstrates an unbelievable amount of bass output, even more than the combined power of both Sonos 5s. So at 25% volume setting, this is not something that I will be enjoying very, very much. In fact, when listening to the Phantom Reactor 600, I realized that I've never actually set the volume as low as 25 before. Usually I'm listening at about 40% volume and above. Devialet has a dial, so that volume dial actually looks quite sweet. If you look at it, it is on a scale of 0 to 100. I'm usually at about 40 or so, 50 if I want to really enjoy the sound. So at lower volumes, what some of these modern speakers, what they do is they employ DSP to try to boost some frequencies at the lower volume so you can hear some amount of bass, some sensation of bass even at low volume. So for the Sonos 5s, they can actually be seen doing that kind of stuff where there's still going to be a boost at the lower frequency, and you will see that relative to the rest of the chart above 100, 150 Hz, the bass response region, the bass region is actually a little bit and slightly boosted. So at 25% volume, when you're listening to it, you actually do get a pretty good sensation of bass coming at you. Whereas the Phantom Reactors, you don't really get that much of that feel at low volumes. So in order to prepare for this video, I've actually done a recording. So I did a recording, probably just the last video that I launched was that of the Phantom Reactors. One of them on its own. I did a full about 39-40 minutes recording of 14 songs where you can listen and hear for yourself how it sounds like. There's also another video which I've done recording the output from one single Sonos 5. So I'm going to put the video links up there, and you can go and click on this after you finish this video so that you can have an idea of how each of them sound. They're both recorded at 40% volume. And why 40%? Because I realized that is kind of like the sweet spot for these speakers to perform at their best. So if you actually push the Phantom Reactor to about 40%, the perceived volume at 40% setting on the Reactor 600 is actually quite similar to the volume setting of 25% on the Sonos 5s. And at above 40% volume or 50% volume in the case of the test that I was doing, you will see that the actual bass output is going to be a lot more perceivable on the Phantom Reactors than the Sonos 5s. Now, I'm not saying that this bass is better than this or the other way around. You've just got to hear it. Both will surprise you. First off, the amount of bass that's coming from this small speaker, it is just mind-bending and mind-boggling in so many ways. So for the conclusion of today's video, let's try to explore a little bit who should be buying what kind of speakers. Now, if you are always going to be playing your music loud, if you like your music loud and you want it to hit you in the face, right? The speaker that you should really be going for will be the Phantom Reactors. They perform admirably at higher volumes, higher as in 50% and above. But if you are the kind who will enjoy softer music, a little bit more vocal, and something that is soothing and placed in the background and not trying to hit you in the face all the time, then go for the Sonos 5s. Okay? But that is still talking about the sound quality. Now, I have to touch one topic, which is that of course, the price of these speakers. Now, if you have $500, then this is out of the equation. You can't even get half a Reactor 600. Half. But you can get one Sonos 5, and the one Sonos 5 in one single enclosure will give you a stereo image, which is a damn fine $500 to spend. But if you have $1,000, then that changes the equation. If you had $1,000, which would you buy? One of these or two of these? If it were up to me, if I were to be choosing for it myself, I would definitely get two Sonos 5 in a stereo pair, because I truly believe that no speakers sound good on their own, not in a stereo pair, on its own mono track. So I definitely prioritize spending $1,000 on a pair of these than a single Reactor 600. But what if you had $2,000 to spend and you can afford to buy a pair of these? Then should you get this? Well, if money is not so much of a concern and you want all-out performance and you don't have a lot of space to place them, and maybe it's just on your table and you want these two Phantom Reactors to sound great on the small footprint that they're occupying, yes, $2,000, buy a pair of the Reactor 600. They will sound pretty fine and you will love the sound that's coming out from the Reactor 600. But if you had the space and maybe you have a couple more rooms, or you have somebody that you love or you like and you want to share the joy with them, $2,000, buy 4 Sonos 5s. That's what I might recommend some of you do. The sound from the Sonos 5, also mind-blowing. And you get 4 pieces of equipment. Why not? So, to summarize, if you have more money than sense, Reactor 600. If you want to make more people happy, buy the Sonos 5. So if you like these kind of comparison videos, do remember to leave a like on the video. And if you have any questions, leave your comments in the comment section below. In my video description below, as well as the QR code that is up here, I've placed my Patreon account QR code. If you scan this, it will take you to my Patreon page. If you are feeling generous, you could leave some tips for me to contribute towards my coffee fund. It will help me go a long way to keep producing content for this channel. So that is all for today's video. If you are considering either the Sonos 5s or the Phantom Reactor 600, I hope that this has been a helpful video to help you decide. If you have heard of only the Phantom Reactors and not the Sonos 5s, or heard of only the Sonos 5s and not the Phantom Reactor, you owe it to yourself to consider both of these excellent speakers.